Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines, and I'm out here in Dallas, Texas, and I got my colleague Jackie Schnook.
Yeah, I'm here in Copenhagen, Denmark. So yeah, great
And welcome.
to.
Sorry, Jackie. Well,
No problem.
welcome to our. I believe this is our 33rd. I think I updated it correctly. Webinar in AutoHotkey. We have a lot of other ones, a lot of great content. So if you haven't seen the other ones, check out. Who's drawing? What was that? We. That's funny. But check out the other webinars, the past. And this is my site, The Automator, and Jackie has his site, jszapp.com. Yeah. And let's get the ball rolling here. All right, I'm going to have to clear. Who drew? All right, clear that.
Who drew? I didn't drew.
Annotate. Clear. I'm not crazy, right? You guys can see it?
Yeah, we can see it, and it didn't work.
Here, all drawings. How's that?
Oh.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Unless you start drawing something really crazy. Anyway, so we had about 30 registrants. Just so you know, everyone starts off muted, not because Jackie and I are full of ourselves. It's just because it would be mayhem if too many people tried to speak at once. I mean, once you get to 3, that's like after 3, it gets to be crazy. But if you have a question, you can either use the chat, which is the easiest way, and then Jackie or I are monitoring the chat, or you can raise your hand. There's a button to raise your hand, and you can or type in there, say you want to ask your question. You can unmute yourself. We just would rather you not unmute it unless you're, ready to ask the question, because some questions are pretty involving. It's just a lot easier to ask the question than it is to type it out. So we understand that. Let's go ahead and get moving here. Now I have. Clear all drawings. Okay. I don't know why. There we go. All right.
James Ford, he was the one who drew.
Oh, thanks, Jim. So I updated our short talks here. This one we just did, I just pushed it like an hour ago. I really liked it. The historical versions of AutoHotkey, where Jackie and I talked through, starting with Chris Mallet back in, we have the date in the video, or we talked about it.
Yeah.
It's been a while ago. And the different threads and different versions and how they kind of all came to be, and what got incorporated when. To me, it was a really interesting topic to talk through. This one also, the API versus web scraping, was fun. The various AutoHotkey websites and communities, we actually broke it into 2 separate sections because it was pretty long, but there are a lot of different sites out there and what they offer, and they offer different things. So we talked about that. Again, I think most everyone's been here before, but we're considering doing a Las Vegas AutoHotkey convention. And so if you have any interest at all, hey, right now it's just, would you have any interest? Let me see if that hot string I wrote there, the VGC. Yep, still there. Good. That was my reminder. By the way, I thought of a whole new benefit of using hot strings that I told you I was reading these books, right? And I really enjoy the books, and I'm writing notes, and I realized that if I had a hot string shortcut for something, that in my notes I can actually write the abbreviation. How they obviously don't get expanded, but I know what that means. So it's a shorthand way where I've already abbreviated for something longer. I'm like, oh, this is funny. It's an offline thing that it's a decoder ring, right? But I'm like, hey, I can type much faster, or I can write notes more concisely because I don't have to write everything out. Anyway.
Yeah, isn't that actually what transcriptors are doing?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
So we as far as the Vegas thing, we don't know anything necessarily about what it is. The good thing I'll know is Jim Ford and I, we've been working on this. We talked to Tank the other day, who is the main admin on the forum, the AutoHotkey forum, and he was completely behind doing this convention, something, and he even said he would go and present as well, which would be great. I'm super lucky. He actually moved to probably less than 10 miles away from me, so it's easy to reach out to him now and stuff. And so he's excited. Yeah, Vegas is cheap. Depends what you go there to do.
On where you're from.
It's true, yes, but it's obviously it's a great destination place, a lot of fun, and the whole thing is a non-profit. We're not trying to make any money on it. Any excess money will either, spring for food while we're there to help spend it, or we'll give it to the forum, right? It's not about making money, the foundation, I should say. It's not about making money. It's about just getting together people that have like minds, picking some topics that they can learn in person, especially having a group together where we can code and do some practicing and learn from each other. So again, just, click that form, add your information, and then when we get a little further down the line and we have some solid ideas, we'll ping you about what the plan is. This script highlights, and actually let me, so since I have this open, let me see. I made that a hyperlink, right?
I think you did.
The full thing. Yeah. Let me put it in the chat. So I was telling Jackie, like, right before the webinar, I realized I didn't go find a script highlight. I just totally blanked it because I was working the other stuff. So the other day I did a tutorial on where I was talking to this vendor online who they do voicemail drops, and so they will take a voicemail and detect if you have a cell phone. If you have a cell phone, it pushes it straight into your voicemail. It never rings it. So suddenly you have this voicemail. And I was asking him about the benchmarks they have about the information that comes out of it, because I wanted to tie it to my data and then be able to look at like where they're from and their type of carrier, and also because I have information about the size of business, other stuff, right? Because I want to do some analytics on it. And he's like, oh man, that's really cool. I'd love to be able to do that for our other vendors. And I said, well, the area code and phone number, the area code and prefix, which used to be called exchange, is you tie those two together and it will tell you who the carrier is and sometimes some other information about it. And so I found an article on it and I looked up the website, but I made a video because he didn't quite get what I was talking about. And I found this website where you can take the URL. Actually, I have one. I have the live page here, and go take this is the area. Yeah, that was the area code, and this is the prefix of my number. And it pulled back, and it said, hey, I'm in Arlington, Texas, which the Arlington's wrong, but it's still pretty close. It told them who the carrier was and whether it's a wireless or a landline. And so in the video, I demonstrated one as I could have, if we actually, and I don't know how to get there. Maybe it's from here. So this is the form I went through to first fill it out. I had to put my information here. I had to put in all the information and click this. And then it came up with that next page, which maybe I can go back. But I realized if you look up here in the URL, right, you can see the structure here and the pattern. And so I just automated, instead of doing the web scraping, pushing the buttons on the first page, I automated just navigating to these pages and grabbing this, which was much faster. And this page loads really fast. So I thought, hey, it's a fun thing still. I put the script in the link that I'd sent you there. It's on my page. It's really not complex, but and I didn't go looping over everything. That's something you'd add to it. But I talked through how it can be done, and it was a great example. The only thing I wasn't happy with this process was I would love to have seen in the background an API call happening instead of them returning HTML, having them return JSON or XML, and then it would have been that much easier to just crank through thousands, tens of thousands of numbers. But of course, we don't know also if they limit how many you do on this site, but it was a fun, interesting thing. So that was useful. Yeah. And it was more, I mean, it is a fun thing. You may not have this need, but my main goal of doing it was to help people realize, one, when you're automating a web page, you can, use web scraping for that. But two is, hey, you don't have to always automate the first page and click all the buttons. You can there's different ways to submit the data. And then if we had taken it to the third level, if they had an API, that would have been awesome. This would have been a great little video saying, look, here's the easy way you can still do this, but at the same time, you can dial it up a notch or take it up a notch more, depending on how much data you're doing, how frequently you're doing it. Yeah. I did one the other day. What was I doing? I was trying to unfriend people on Facebook because I had joined this group. And then I joined a bunch of people. I connected with people in the group because I thought I could do stuff with them for Amazon sales. And it turns out Facebook really limits on how much you can write people with even your own friends, right? If you write the same message, they stop you pretty quickly. So I started unfriending, and then I'm like, man, this sucks. So Instead of using COM and everything, I used that find text function. In about 2 minutes, I had a script that would, click, find the, friend, click unfriend, click next, and anyway, it was a lot of different ways to do stuff. So,
Yeah.
all right, that's where we are there. Let's get on to the fun stuff. All right, so the why and when to use error checking. So first off, this was my misconception of the whole error. When I hear error checking, in my head, I was thinking more about troubleshooting, and that is not what this webinar and topic is about, right? It's when you're doing troubleshooting, most people use message boxes. There's a lot of debug features, and then we have a webinar on debugging and troubleshooting. There's several videos. I should have linked to them here, but maybe I'll try to remember to add them to the deck before we send out the content. But there's great tools like in AutoHotkey Studio or Sites. I assume Notepad++ has debugging features. I've seen a video on it. Yeah, it does. But that's for when you try to launch your script and it comes up and says an error, right? Or when it's it's not runtime errors, and runtime errors is what you're really doing with doing error handling. So the script actually has to launch first and not show an error, right? That's what we're discussing. And so it was interesting. So for me, like I mentioned earlier before we started here, that I don't really do I haven't used error handling. And so when I started looking into it, and I talked to Jean Lalonde on here, and Joe Winograd is another AutoHotkey user who does a lot of this, and Jackie too. And they mentioned it allows you to adapt the reported error as something that's not so mystic, right? But the big one is, sorry, I meant to say this. It's when you're going to distribute it to other people who especially are noobs, who are not, programmers, and they don't understand what to do with an error. And so this is when you typically want to do it, is when you're going to, you can change the error, something much more constructive, right? So other people are running your code will have something much better than that message box that is really overall cryptic if you're not a programmer, because you're not looking into what lines have the errors and snap. It can also help you document a lot of the information of the error that you really need to have. And you can, of course, create a log file, which is also really cool, of just all the errors. You can have it automatically dump it to a log file. We're going to show you that here in a few minutes. And it can also help you stop the script from just freezing up entirely, which is usually, especially if you've given your script to a client, you don't want it to be doing that.
That's for sure.
Do you have anything to add to there, Jackie?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing as you just said. Sure. I'd say error checking and runtimes errors and all of that stuff. I'd say, yeah, general troubleshooting. You'll get pretty used to that pretty quickly. But the more advanced ways of handling errors, I think it's a good topic.
Giving myself here a little reminder here. Hopefully I can, whatever. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about at first the ErrorLevel and OnError functionality built into AutoHotkey. So there's 84, I counted them, built-in commands or functions that report an error level. And the easiest way to say it is basically if you don't have a 0, then you have an error, right? Because there's more than on a lot of commands, it's just 0 and 1. And if it's a 0, there's no errors. If there's a 1, the error. There's quite a few that have a 1, a 2, a 3, and I think possibly text, if I remember seeing one of them had or something. But you can have more than that. So the best thing to do is to check to see if it's not 0. If it's not 0, then you have an error. Or if it's higher than 0, it has an error.
Yeah. Or if error level, which everything other than 0 will return true.
Yeah, that's a good. Actually, that's a sneak peek into a little tweak I did on my script, which I'll show you here in a minute. But it'll solidify what you just pointed out, Jackie, of using logic for controlling things, right? Yeah. The OnError, it specifies a function that will automatically, when the error happens, you can have it jump to that function. And honestly, that syntax, I'm really glad I looked at this because it was not the way I would have expected it to be. And then the onExit is just one of the things I want to throw in here. Hey, you can have, when your script closes, you can have it go do some other things as well, like logging a file or whatever you want. So it's a good one just as a reference. As I mentioned, there were 84 built-in command functions that you can use this error level checking with. Here they are. Studied them all. No, I did put them in here, and I stole them, of course, from the forum, and I didn't do a little hyperlinking like crazy, right? I just did some creative copying and pasting. But so these are the things that are in there. It's a lot of the main commands, right? So there's a lot of great stuff. Yeah, and input text has the error level, and actually that's Serpent text. That's a new one. I haven't seen that before. Anyway, we're going to cover. That's one of the examples we're going to go into here in just a second. Is using an input box because I don't know if I said it before, but certain things are only available by checking the error level. That was an interesting thing to me too. Is if and we'll go into that I think right now. Yes. So right now, let's jump over to OnError. Okay. So before I do anything. Let me change this to 0 and let me explain. When I first wrote this, and this is what I used to do, was I would use Go subs. I would create a Go sub, and then a top, and then I would have like 5 or 6 Go subs, and then I would enable and disable, and then I would go down to the Go sub, and then play with it. But what I realized was that's a lot of going top to bottom, especially in a big script. And Maestria takes this approach where he creates this if command, and then he just changes this to a 0 or a 1. And just with that logic, it's like what Jackie mentioned earlier. Like if this is a 0, this code won't execute. But by changing it to a 1, I'll basically turning it on. It's like a toggle to turn something on and off. So I'm like, hey, that's easier because then I just scroll down wherever I am. I don't have to jump back up to the top and not. So that has nothing to do with error control. But it was an interesting thing of an easy way to enable and disable sections of your code and not have to jump around.
Yeah.
So this first one, I don't think this is running. Let me run it. All right. And when I hit my hotkey, it's going to come in here. It's going to say, enter your name. And here, I put a timeout on it of 3 seconds. And I put one on maybe that should have been longer. So those will stay up. And let's make this one a little bit longer, and I can talk a little more. So rerun it. So now it's checking there. Now, if I hit the cancel here or the cancel here, it's going to give me one return. Right now, it timed out, right? So it tells me the error level is 2, right? So here I've captured it. Error level equal. I'm sorry, I didn't capture it. That's the next one. The error level. If the error level equals 1, it's going to do this message box. If the error level equals 2, it's going to put it up here and tell you what the error level. Sorry, where is that? Right here. What the error level is. And then say it either timed out or cancel was hit. And this is one, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if they hit cancel, there's no way to know without using this that someone hit cancel. Does that sound right, Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, that was an eye-opener for me, as I never done, and I'm sure it's the same thing for the timed out. Actually, you wouldn't know it timed out. But this allows you to check to see if it timed out or not, or if they hit cancel. So let me hit it again. If I hit cancel here, it'll say 1, level is 1 and cancel was hit. If I hit cancel, did I do the top before? I think here, it'll say the same thing. And then if the time's out, it's going to come back with a 2. Right? And we're checking that by looking at this logic.
Yeah, and there could be many reasons for you needing that. Let's say you want var to have a value. You can easily check if var has a value, but if it's blank, why is it blank? Is it blank because they actually timed out? That might be a thing if it needs to run autonomously. Yeah, here I need you to input a value, but if that value isn't critical enough for you to not continue after an amount of time, then of course you need to know that it timed out. It wasn't because they canceled it. But if you want to say stop the process if someone clicks cancel, that's nice to know. compared to just having a blank variable, because the blank variable can be for many different reasons. So,
yeah, no, that's an excellent point, Jackie. That's what if let's say you were adding on parameters to a search you were going to do, and that's what this does is it allows you to add on some extra keywords to something you're doing. Then not having an answer might be perfectly fine, but if people hit cancel, they're probably saying, never mind, I don't want to do this, right? And this would allow you to make different decisions based on that, and this is how you can detect it.
Exactly.
So the next one, when I was speaking to Jean about this, he mentioned, which is it's a really good point, is this error, because as that other slide we showed you, right, there was, what was it, 84 different commands and functions check this error level. Well, the second you run it, and then the next one comes up, it's going to overwrite with that. It's the same error level variable, right? They're not unique. So unless correct me if I'm wrong, I think inside a function they would stay separate, right? Because they're
only if they were in separate functions, right?
Yes. But that's all. That's what I meant.
If they weren't, let's say, if they weren't static, and you probably can't even make error level static, but still, as soon as it would leave the function, it would be clear.
But his point, which was a great one, is, hey, before you actually, instead of up here, this is exactly the same thing that we're doing, right? But what I changed it was to let's save the error level as our own variable, right? And that way it's almost like creating a backup in case something else happens and overwrites that error level. Now I know the next time I change that ERR variable. So let me change this to 0. We'll rerun it, but it's really the same code. It's just where we first store our error level in a variable and then make a decision based off of what our own variable is, not this one, right? So I think that's a great tip of when you have complex stuff and a lot of stuff going on, this is a great way to make sure that the error level you're examining is the one you think you're looking at.
Yeah.
And it's just for Jean, he's helped us a lot of webinars, but his tool, QAP, Quick Access Pop-Up, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The next example, we're just going to use, it's really the same thing as far as the concept-wise, but we're going to look at click weight and see, we're going to give it a second we're going to clear clipboard, give it a second to take a value, and if it doesn't get filled, then it's going to pop up here with an error. So I'm going to run this, and just it says, hey, you know what? Hey, the clipboard never got populated, right? So I actually do use this one. I didn't even think about it. It's so funny, it's second nature. But when I will copy text that's highlighted, I'll send it to the clipboard because I'll highlight it and send Control-C. But before that, before that, I back up the clipboard because I want to keep what was in my clipboard. Then I will clear the clipboard, and then I use this command to wait and see if wait for a second for a value to get into the clipboard, and then before it goes forward, I want to make sure that the text, that's when I push the selected text into the clipboard. But if something goes wrong there, I want to know that, like, hey, actually nothing ever showed up in the clipboard. So I do use. Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, I've used it quite a lot, and some people, at least on the forum, has repeatedly said that clip weight had errors or one that was unworking for them. And of course, I haven't been able to disprove them because I don't have access to their system. But for me, it has been very, very reliable. I haven't had a case where it hasn't worked as described. You just need to work the command correctly. You can't check for the clipboard to get data if you haven't removed the data first. And of course, some programs are slower to accept commands. So let's say you're copying from Word, and you send Word the key commands to copy or to select something and then copy it. And you want to check if something was copied. You need to let Word process the commands you first sent it. So if you send it a select command, give it a few milliseconds to do that, and then give it an additional few seconds or milliseconds to actually process the copying command. And then after that, the clip wait will work for you. But again, it depends on whatever it is.
Yep.
I find it to be a really, really useful one if you use the clipboard.
You know, it never dawned on me to ask why, but I've figured it out empirically. But why can't you watch for like new, quote unquote, new content to show up in the clipboard? It has to be blank, and then for it to have some. That's it. It never dawned on me.
That is what the clip wait function is. It waits for the clipboard to contain data. So if the clipboard already has data, it will not wait. It will just pass over it immediately because, hey, it has data. I've waited for it to have data.
Oh.
It's not waiting for new data.
Yeah.
It's just waiting for the clipboard to have data.
Yeah. So
it has
to some degree, that's a bad name for it, right? The clip wait. Because it really should be like clip data, yes. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I never thought about it that way. Great. Awesome. Okay. So for the last, let's see, here, this is the last one. Now, this one, I'm going to turn it on here. It's a little more complex, but it's pretty awesome. So this OnError, this is what threw me at first, because when you use the OnError function, you reference whatever function you've created that says you want to keep track of the error, right? In here, I've written a log error function, which is down here. What threw me a lot was this is in quotes, right? So that actually confused me because I'm not used to putting the name of a function in between quotes to do something with it. I'm used to calling a function, which of course you don't put it in quotes. But and then when you do that, this is a really important part here, is the function is given the exception object as the parameter. So this log error function that I'm calling will receive this exception here automatically as the parameter. Well, and you can call this whatever you want, right? But it's going to push it into that parameter automatically.
From these things that you're saying, I'm not used to that. I haven't seen that before. If you knew enough about the AutoHotkey history, you would also know that that's because it's a recent add to the language, because that was when or after Lexicos had added quite some advanced object handling stuff.
Cool. So basically, again, so we get that error level, it passes, or the exception, I'm sorry, and the exception, it's really important to also realize this is an object, right? Because when you try to access it, you'll spend an enormous amount of time if you don't realize it's an object. And this object has certain, what are they called? Methods, which you can pull. So it jumps down into here when there's an error, and I actually created, it's going to do a file append, and I'm putting in the text here, hey, write error line on, and this exception, this is the exception object, right, we're referencing. So it's going to put in the line number, because this is line, these, everything to the right here, this one and the message, those aren't things you can make up. There are certain things that are available, right? But the ones I use a lot are this line and message. And I'll put a new line, and it's going to write it to this error log file. And then I'm just going to read the file and display it down here. So now that I've turned it on, let me launch it. And since I've run this a couple times before, these were the errors we had ahead of time, right? This new one, error line 43, which is right here, right? Is that 43? Why is that 43? Error line 43. That seems like that's the wrong number. I thought it would be 36. Oh, there. You know, I must have a bug in there where it reads it first and then the next time through. But this time it was 36. So, sorry about that. But
you're probably no. You shouldn't be able to read it too quickly, right?
You think that's...
The final append should probably wait until the append is done. But yeah, who knows?
Okay, so maybe that'll be enough to slow it down. But what's, think about this. Like when you have an error, so it's coming through here, it tries to run right here. This causes the error, right? And so right then it jumps down. This is what's weird to me also. here's the error. Like this, we just said, hey, when there is an error, this could have been pretty much anywhere where the code's running. It's going to cause the error, come up here and say, oh, go past, jump down to this function and write this stuff out and then actually store it into a log file, right? That's to me really cool because this is a great, easy way for you to not even, you can build tools to give to people because I'm sure anyone who's done anything where you try to work with people, no one ever documents anything of actually what went wrong. And the fact that I can automatically generate this log file and push it somewhere for myself, I think that's really awesome. The other thing I wanted to point out was, see this line 37, right? When I run this, if I comment this out and run it, so I'm going to run it. Hey, here's my message box, right? Now I'm going to remove that, rerun. Now when I rerun it, I hit my hotkey. It does this part, right? But that message box never happens. Why? Because this error, it never got here, right? So that's another critical thing to realize. Like that's if you're doing something like this, hey, if there's an error like this before it may not get to it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody? Or at least enough?
I hope so.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So let's switch back now. I think, again, I learned some cool stuff in this that I think especially this logging of the errors, I think that's pretty slick to be able to dump that somewhere where I can have it as a file that I can later go look at. Where does it go after return?
Where does it go after return? Probably to the initial script state, right?
Well, I don't think it does unless I'm interpreting that literally, because once it hits the error, it stops processing.
It stops this thread, right? It
Yeah.
shouldn't stop the script.
Oh, okay. Let's do this. I'm going to rerun it. Now it did that. Now let me double click the icon, right? And we should be able to see. So at least we know that was the last thing done. I don't know how to detect where it actually ended pointing back to. But
no, but if you had a hotkey, let's say you had a hotkey to start it.
I do.
The hotkey starts from, let's say, an idle state that happens after the auto execute section.
Yeah.
And there the script is just idle, waiting for a thread to be started by an hotkey. So when you get to the log error on exit return, it just returns or exits the thread or whatever you call that.
So, yeah. So I think I kind of helped prove your point, Jackie, in that it doesn't stop the entire script from processing. It just stops that thread. So I hit my hotkey here. Even though I just had the error, and I can do it again. You'll see another line comes up here, right? But I can still hit Control T. It still triggers this, right? The script is still running, but it doesn't keep processing that thread.
No, if Joe, if you remove the line 35, try and remove that line.
35?
No,
Yeah.
35, yeah. And then run the script. Then you'll see this message box here that you're used to seeing when you have errors like this.
Yep.
When you click OK, the current thread will exit. But instead of that box coming up when you use the OnError, you make your own function that actually handles the error. The thread will still exit, just like with the other box. But here, you just handle it.
It's awesome.
And so when you return, the thread will have ended or be exited.
Jackie, that was brilliant. That little bit, I think, at least for me, solidified exactly what in the world this thing is doing. Right? Because you're controlling whether AutoHotkey by default uses its own error reporting or you do. That's brilliant. Love it. Cool. Okay. Let's jump back over to try and catch. Now, I say try and catch, but there's actually a lot of other stuff you can do with the try catch, like overall things. There's try, basically it's going to try to execute that line or lines of code. Catch will say, hey, if there was an exception raised, do this instead. Throw allows you to throw a specific error in.
Yeah. And here, what you are exactly talking to now, Joe, is that James Ford, he asked again in the chat, is there a way to continue the thread? And this is actually it. The,
Yeah.
the try and catch is how you would try and then catch any of these types of unhandled errors, and then you'll be able to do throw finally and so on and so forth.
Yeah. The throw in this, it allows you to display information about the error, and then the finally, that's like the last end all be all, I believe, is what it does. The exception, and this is it's similar to the other one that's exception object, or maybe it is the exact same thing. Maybe it is, but it allows you to look at the message, the what, some extra information if you make it available, the file, and the line number. And so we're gonna let's see, yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of the try and catch stuff here. So actually, let me exit my other script. And now I'm gonna launch this. Oh, it would help if I turned something on first. So let me reload. And now when this runs, it's gonna try and do everything between this bracket and this bracket. The first one, hello world, actually it'll pop down here and it'll work fine. This next make toast, this is where we have this throw built in to say, hey, what's going on? And you'll see this. It's easier to demonstrate than to explain it. So here's the hello world, but the second I hit OK, now it gives you this error, and it tells you specifically make toast, right? So that's where this function, right, or this func, sorry, it's saying this is the one I'm in, make toast, right, is not implemented, sorry. So that's going to fail. And that jumped into there because, sorry, I should have said, it tried this, failed, and this is when the catch came in, and this is when it did the exception, right? And this is what that E object is getting. Is that where it is, Jackie? Actually, I'm a little lost here. Is that the E? Is that getting thrown to there?
The E is the exception, right?
Yeah, but
so here you're just writing E, the letter E instead of the entire word exception. So just as you had in the other script before, where you had exception line, exception message, exception text, whatever you had there. Here, by using the throw command, you're actually passing parameters back to the exception. So, did that make sense?
I think so, yeah. I just would have expected, because it's an object, right? If I was actually using it as one. I should have had something else there.
This one is a string, right? So, but I actually believed it was the object, but it might be the string.
No, I'm pretty sure it is a string because I use it later. Let's go ahead and jump to the next one, and we'll give that a try. No, it's a string. Oh, okay. The value thrown by throw is store. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. So we're on to our next one here. And this one I really like the this gives you, look at all this information that it's throwing up here for you, right? So first you're going to try to do this stuff, and then if it doesn't, this is where we're using this E object. This is what was throwing me, was this E. I was thinking up above I should have had a dot something, dot notation.
Yeah, but the reason is, as he explained down here in the chat, is that as soon as you actually pass a string to throw, that is what is passed to E. But if you don't pass string, then you will get the object instead.
Okay, so I can choose, and that's what that added information is. If I want it to be, I can choose what to push into that, it being a string or something.
Yeah, you could also push in an object.
Yeah, cool. But this is the built-in stuff, right? This is using the E object of the what, and so this is the what. Here's the files, the line, the message, in extra, which I don't think we had anything. Oh, execute statement. That must have been somewhere, right? Is execute statement written somewhere?
No, but that's the exception, right? That's the extra.
Okay.
So what actually was, it was an execute statement that failed.
Ah, cool. Cool. So again, this is great because you can have now, we're throwing it into a message box, but there's no reason, you don't need your clients to see this, right? You can dump all this information again to like a log file, and have it automatically writing it for you, and that way you can keep track of what's actually going wrong, which is the main thing of what you're trying to do. Right? But imagine trying to get your client to explain this, like what's in here, right? Like that's not going to happen.
Can you try and run that again, Joe? Because I just want to make sure what's actually happening. Because to me, it seems as if the extra, is that actually happening on the line that says execute statement? So it's not actually happening on the invalid method. To get what I'm saying? In the try, you have object, object create script control, and then you have object execute statement.
Yeah, it should have been.
But the statement never happens, right? You never get a message box saying this is an embedded VB script.
Right.
So so it's actually failing on execute statement, and that's what it's telling you.
Right. Yeah, and it had the line number right as well. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So even if you remove line 26,
right, it's never getting there. Right. So this will be the same thing as what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where's this help file?
It's probably connected to the script control, right?
I don't know.
MS script. Seems like it's the help file for the script control. But where it's located, I don't know.
Yeah, it's somehow, like you said, so in behind the scenes, it's connected to it some way.
Yeah, you create the COM object script control, right?
Uh-huh.
And because that's a part of that.
Okay.
It has a help file, right?
Yep.
The help file is MS script.
Yeah,
help.
Interesting.
Probably located in the Windows directory somewhere. That's just me guessing.
Yeah, interesting. Oops. All right. This next one is just a little bit simpler example. So it's trying some function, and then here we're throwing the exception, and we're saying fail -1.
So here you're taking control of the exception object instead of getting the default message that you got above with what and file, online, and message.
Yeah.
Here you're taking control by throwing the exception object or the function that will return an exception object. So
how come I am confused in this exception fail with it in quotes? I would have thought to have seen that. Did I not? Should I have done like a different?
I'd guess that the fail would be e-message.
There you go. Thank you. I'm glad that.
If you go to the exception object here in Studio, you will be able to actually see which parameter will pass which part.
Sure.
So if you go down there and remove or place the cursor in with fail.
With fail? Oh,
yeah.
I see what you mean. Yes.
So message what extra. So.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Which and yeah, I guess even Site I think would have hopefully popped that one up.
Yeah,
but,
you would probably just have had to delete the opening bracket, whatever it's called.
The paren?
Yeah.
No, I think it might have done it. But anyway, yeah. So that was just another. It's really similar to up above, but this time we're handling it on our own and using the object to pull out what we want, right? And here, I love this because. Right, because imagine this, this could have been in your log. You can put whatever you want, right? And that's the great thing is you can have context about where it happened, what script it was in. You could even throw in a timestamp with this part, right, of the when it happened, get other information, dump it all into your log file.
Yeah.
The next one, I just wanted to demonstrate it's not a great example, but it is what I used to do, and Jackie and I were talking. I'm not actually going to run it, but it was there are ways you can, if you're using COM, when you try to run stuff, and if like this element didn't exist in the web page, it would throw an error. And so you can do this. You can set your COM object error to 0, which will basically negate all of your errors. But then, other things are going to be going wrong that you really want to know about. So that's not the recommended thing to do. But that's actually why I wanted to show this was you don't have to have a try-catch pair. Jackie actually taught me that a long time ago. I was doing it for everyone, try, catch. And you can have, easily have 4 or 5 of these in a row. It doesn't matter. You just keep trying things. And even if it's not there, if I'm, you know what? I was wrong earlier. I should have said this would cause an error, right? Because we didn't have the tries. But if I have the tries in front of those, even with the COM object error enabled, having a try in front of them won't cause that message box to pop up and stop your script from running. So,
yeah, it will pass all of the stuff to the structure we already saw with catch and with finally and all of those things. But if you only keep the try, it will try the command. If it fails, it will just fail silently, so to speak. But it will still fail. It won't fix the issue. But if let's say you're clicking something or looking for something or just trying something, then the try can be an easy way to not need to, like here, let's say you want to test 4 elements on some page and the first one keeps failing on you and the script and the thread exits. But you want to check the last 3 things because you're just debugging right now. This is one way to do that. Then we'll continue on, and if any one of them actually works, you'll see it. Not with the code that you have here, Joe, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. The other way with web scraping, actually, I learned this. Oh, and let's do it fancy. Is if you add item here, then it'll also not fail when you try it.
Yeah, you should have the dot there, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Right, back over. Yeah. Dot item. Yes.
Yes.
So that's another way to that's how I do it now. I stop using the try every time and I use this. I don't have to worry about it. It works with an ID. You don't need it. An ID, if you're get element by tag name, you don't need the item. It won't fail. It won't have the message box. With get elements by tag name and class name and what the world's last one? Name. Then they will pop up that message box, but you can use this item to take care of that. So anyway, that oh no, sorry. Let's get back to the there is one final slide here. So here's some best practices to go by, right? Remember the exception variable and the try catch is an object, right? So don't get hung up when you're trying to look at what E is, because E, as far as like in a message box, is E is an object, and you need to add those like while or .what or whatever they are, or message. Not all programs.
I actually believe that this is a little bit the other way around, where the exception is an object and the E is
it is. You're right. Yeah. Well, the exception variable in try-catch is it's poorly worded.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. Let me fix it. In try-catch, exception is an object. Much better. Yeah. There you go. That's much clearly stated. Better. It's pretty sad when you have a non-English person, first language person correcting your grammar. But
I might not have done it correctly, but still.
Yeah, no, you're right. This is much clearer. This should have a the exception. That's close enough. the next one, which is what Joe Winograd mentioned, was like, hey, a lot of times AutoHotkey says you can use run wait and detect error levels, but not all programs actually report back on that error level properly. They'll say they finished, and they didn't. They'll say they were right, they didn't. And so you can do other things like make sure, check for a file that was written, check for how your script closed. I mean, there are other ways to go about saying, did my script run properly, right? So if you are running something outside of AutoHotkey, don't always trust this run wait, the error level from the run wait.
Does I'm just to put you off guard or whatever, does AutoHotkey actually have a method of making an exit code? Can't remember, because that's probably what you need to actually catch anything from one wait.
It does say it can pull it. I thought error level. Is that what you're referring to? The command is able to throw an exception on failure. This is from the run command.
Yeah, that's the command itself. But I was more thinking of if you have an on exit thing, exit code. Fair enough. Thank you, Captain Odin, in the chat. So yeah, exit has the parameter exit code.
Okay.
So that's good.
And
exit app as well. Great. Because those are, if you were using run wait on your own scripts,
okay,
using the exit code would let you actually pass back.
I get it.
Messages.
Yeah. So the even really advanced users doing stuff in AutoHotkey and sharing a lot of stuff, they often don't use the throw and the finally in the try and catch stuff. So honestly, unless you really have a need, don't worry about them. Right? They're just not. A lot of people don't use them at all. So if that was over your head, honestly, don't worry about the other stuff we covered. They're not that commonly used. They are helpful, don't get me wrong, but just if you don't have the, if it's too much for you, don't worry about it. While typically, this is what I covered a minute ago, try and catch is used as pairs. You can use multiple tries in a row. You don't need a catch. It's just the easy way to get around some of the errors. As we talked also earlier, this COM object error, it can be set to 0 to get rid of the errors and stop them from popping up, but we don't recommend it. And this is the one that I mentioned that John had mentioned, and we covered earlier, was the saving of that error level as your own variable immediately after you get it, and then you can choose what you want before some other program overwrites it.
Yeah, or maybe not some other program, but at least some other part of your thread, right? So if you continue on with AutoHotkey being inherently single-threaded, as soon as you actually use another command that uses error level, you will overwrite your previous error level. So of course, if you have like the input box that we showed, and you want to know what the user did, but you also want to do something more before you handle the user's input or action, then the input box's error level can be overridden by whatever you did right below it. So yeah, it's a good idea if you want to use the error level at a later time or in a moment or for something else, passing it, whatever you want to do. If it's not handled immediately, store it in a variable.
Yeah, and just imagine if you didn't do that, how much time you could waste if you were actually trusting that error level to be a certain value, and yet something else was overwriting it and saying there's no error, or there was an error when there wasn't. You could waste a lot of time diagnosing the wrong thing. So I think it's a really good tip, just to make sure. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording just because we're right at the hour. And then if anyone has any questions, we'll hit them up here in just 1 second. So let me stop recording.